Hey everybody, Luann here from EveryStem. I am so excited about sharing a conversation that I'm going to have with Jeri Solomon. She is a floral designer and she has over 28 years of floral design experience. She's in the Boston area and she has been a member of EveryStem since February. So I'm excited about talking to her and sharing a little bit about how she's transitioned from her process before into using EveryStem and how it's helped her in her business. So welcome, Jeri.
Thank you. And thank you for having me and inviting me to talk to you. It's really exciting to talk about this really great product.
Thank you. Thank you for coming and joining me. So tell me a little bit about your business and just a little bit about your background in floral design.
Sure. So my first job at age 16 was in a flower shop and I never really looked back. That's the short story. I have owned my own company, Jeri Solomon Floral Design, for 28 years, and I do large scale events only. So I'm a studio florist. When I started, studio florists wasn't really a thing. There was maybe a handful in the Boston area. I don't know about other parts of the country, but it was the way I wanted to do it because when I worked in flower shops, there was always the events and then there was the daily stuff. And I found the daily stuff distracting from the events. So that's what I decided I wanted my business to be.
That's so great. And so about how many weddings or events do you do on average? I know with COVID and different things, but.
So I usually look to do about 25 to 30 events a year, 25 to 30 weddings, and then filling in with kind of the more last minute corporate other social types.
Other smaller events.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. And so tell me a little bit about how you would price your flowers and order your flowers for your business before you started getting into using EveryStem.
So I have been someone who's always looked at the bottom line. And that's always been important to me because although I love flowers, it is not a hobby. It is my business. And I need to support myself and a family and things like that. So that's always been important to me. And really up until this year, what I would do is take out that lined piece of paper and create my recipes. And so if it was a wedding, I would, put the name of the wedding at the top and I would start bride and I would put, 10 roses, 5 this, 2 of that, whatever. And then 3 bridesmaids, and I would just create every single recipe and then I would go through the math. So it's like, okay, the bride needs 10 roses and each bridesmaid needs 5 roses and there's 3 of them. So that's 15 plus 10 is 25. And then I'd go through the whole thing and write that number on the side of, okay, I need 100 roses. And so it was all in my head with a calculator. And then of course I would go through the numbers to make sure that, okay, I'm ordering this many flowers and with the current prices, I think it's going to be this much money and I charge them this. So did I make my profit? Did I make my markup correctly? And then they might change it to, they might change the table. So then I'd have to go in to my paper and it would get very messy and it took a lot of time. I mean, it worked, but, and I was never savvy enough with Excel to do that sort of thing. So it's been pen and paper for 28 years.
Yeah. And then you heard about EveryStem and it was during your busy season, you mentioned to me before. So you found out about it through Allison Ellis, Real Flower Business Facebook group, which we all are huge fans of here. We love her. She's amazing. And she teaches so much more than flower math, but, it's such an essential part of the business piece. And I know being successful for 28 years, you've been through a lot of different, financial crisis, 9/11, as you mentioned, when we were talking before we started recording. And being a business person and owning your own business is so much more than just being creative and doing flowers. Yeah. So you found her and you were in her group and then you heard about EveryStem. What kind of drew you to be willing to give EveryStem a try?
Allison's endorsement, I think what Allison says is, she is so right on. You know, I know a lot of people are in her group because they're newer and they're learning. And for me, I'm in that group because I feel like we're kindred spirits. And I feel like, you know, what would Allison say? That's what I'd say. So it's almost for me because we've been in it for so long. So I just hugely respect her and how she operates her business and just works with people. And I'm just amazed at the courses she offers and things like that. So when she said, hey, there's this thing called EveryStem, and I think it's really cool because XYZ, I said, I just believed her because of course. And so, and I like that she said, you know, this does one thing. There's a lot of things out there that do try to do a lot of things, build the port, you know, make the Pinterest board or the inspo board, and also process payments. It's like, I don't need that. I just need this. And then when I looked at the pricing of it, I was like, this is a no-brainer, because it is a no-brainer. It is, you know, some of those other things that do all the bells and whistles, it's like, it doesn't make sense for me to spend that money.
Right.
And it seems really complicated.
Right.
So, and I have my systems, and I am an old dog. I am an old dog who doesn't like to learn new tricks. And, you know, and her old tricks might not be the best, but they work. So this just said to, when I heard about it, I said, oh, I have to try that. I think that this would be something that could bring some more efficiency, because I knew that pen and paper wasn't efficient. I knew that. I just didn't have a better way.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the reasons why I created EveryStem, because I feel like I've had my hand in a couple other softwares here or there. And, you know, a lot of us were doing it either Excel or by pen and paper. And, you know, I was like, there's got to be a better way. And it doesn't have to be that you use these softwares that are all in one, especially for someone like you who is experienced, who has systems, who knows what they're doing, and kind of has a great, you know, layout of how you handle, you know, from meeting with a client to sending them a proposal to executing the event. It's just kind of taking that system that you were already using with pen and paper and making it more efficient. And knowing that you're going to not only make more money because you're more efficient, because probably by hand, you know, there is room for human error,
100%.
But also just the amount of time that you save. And maybe that, like you had said, I wanted to talk to you about a little bit how you felt like you had more space in your brain for other things.
Yes. So, you know, when you're doing it on pen and paper, there's a lot of investment in the, you know, going back and checking your numbers twice. And then, oh my gosh, what if they change, you know, now there's 12 tables instead of 10. So all the math has to be done. And did you have enough leftovers of roses because you were ordering by 25? Like, that's just a lot of brain space, and also human error. So going over it again and again and again to make sure I am ordering the right things and I didn't miss in my chicken scratch. So this has, it's like, I put it in, I put my numbers in. Sure, I checked to make sure that I did put in 10 tables.
Sure.
You know,
always got to double check those at the end.
Right. But it's just, and then I print it out and I forget about it. Like somehow it doesn't hold space. Or the other thing is that I'm able to do things earlier. So for example, if I do a sample for a party, you know, for a wedding, you know, and then I get the recipe for that centerpiece. In the old days, it would go on a piece of paper, chicken scratch, into the folder. And now, yes, it does that for the first few minutes. And then I get back to my desk, and that wedding could be next year. Well, probably not. That wedding could be, you know, months away. And I put in the name of that wedding and I set it up. And it's like, I might not do all my recipes, but I put in that centerpiece recipe.
Yeah, and that just getting that started, I think, even if I've heard from people who say, you know, the best thing to do is just start it out. So just put the name of the event, the date, one recipe, and then somehow that procrastination and that feeling of weight and that feeling of stress about it tends to get alleviated, even though you haven't done the majority of the work.
Right.
It's that, like, you know, when you're supposed to be starting to exercise January 1st because you haven't exercised, you know, just showing up. That, you know, I think it's like James Clear, he has that book Atomic Habits, and he says, just go to the gym, just drive there, just start 1 minute of putting your gym clothes on. You know, it's that first step. Once you have that, then it like somehow mentally feels better about, you know, oh, okay, I've got that started. I can just click in there anytime and check it out.
Yeah. And to that point, it's you know, again, using like the copy feature, like I've created a wedding template. And at your suggestion, I also created a wedding template for a specific location that I do a lot of work at, you know.
That's awesome.
So went in and, you know, I've already filled it in that there's brides and there's bridesmaids and there's boutonnieres and there's corsages and there's high tables and low tables. And so even just that, I don't have to write that out again. That saves time and brain space. And, you know, so to the example of, okay, I have this sample recipe, I put that in, I've put in the flowers that we're using, and those flowers are going to be used elsewhere. So then it's like, I'm not even writing it again. I'm because yes, we're putting those same roses into the bouquets or into the cocktail tables or the church or whatever it is. So it just seems like all of these little tiny efficiencies, you know, it might be 3 seconds here and a minute there, but it all adds up. It's like pennies all add up, right? So, you know, and then it's, you know, maybe I saved an hour or I don't know, or I just feel like I'm not as, like, I trust the program. So I trust that the numbers are there. This week I have 3 corporate events. I did the recipes weeks ago because we all know how we have to order these days, right? So I did them weeks ago. I don't even know what's in these things, right? Sunday night, I printed out my summaries. I put them in my folder. We are very lucky in Boston in that we have a flower market, so we can go in and touch and feel and see all the flowers.
I'm so jealous of that.
We're so spoiled. I think we're one of the last cities in the country. San Francisco might still have one. It's so, we're spoiled. But anyway, I printed them out and I had ordered most of it. And I took a quick look Sunday night, but then I just went into the flower market and I went to my vendors. And I was like, do you have my orders? And they did. And I looked at them, I checked them off, and I came home. And I still didn't even, like, I couldn't even tell you what the recipe is. Whereas before, when I was doing it, I think I always knew what the recipe was because I had gone over it so many times.
Right.
You know, I could recite to you everything. That's a lot of brain space. Again, for an old dog who can be using her brain space in other ways.
An
you know?
Awesome business owner.
No, but I think especially after a pandemic, I just feel like I think we're all really tired. And so I've really noticed that there are certain things I don't want to keep in my brain. Like there are other things I'd rather be doing. So this has just been like a game changer, truly a game changer for me.
That's so awesome. And I know that a lot of designers who are interested in, you know, kind of finding a system that works for them are newer. You know, you know, the floral design industry, I think since the pandemic has had kind of a pretty decent influx in design. And, you know, I've been doing this for 15 years. You've been doing it for 28. So we've seen some, you know, ebbs and flows of like, there are cycles of like, now there's kind of more floral designers out there, and then it kind of dips down. And I think we're kind of in a period of influx for new designers. So learning this early on and building this into their business is really valuable, but also for designers who have been doing this for a while, like yourself and Allison Ellis, you know, who are experienced, who know what they're doing, who've been doing this for a long time, but then are also willing to change their habits. And the fact that you were willing to take the time to learn something new and implement something new is awesome, because, you know, we do really get kind of set in our ways, and then we get a little, you know, kind of lackadaisical, and we're like, well, it's fine, it's not that big of a deal. But really now maximizing profit and saving time, that combination is huge. So tell me a little bit about when you first joined EveryStem. You probably watched a few of the videos, and you probably started building out your library or started with events. How'd you get in and get started? And how long did it take you till you felt that aha moment where you were like, oh yeah, this is going to be my system going forward?
Yeah. So even before I answer that, I just want to say that, like, one, myself or anybody else does not stay in business for 28 years if you're not willing to innovate. And I'm just saying that to, the young people, the people who have been in for a little while, like, I joke that I'm an old dog, but I also know that there are certain things that you must change. I started my business before there was an internet that for public consumption. Right. So there have been a lot of things, social media, all the things, like, in order to stay relevant, one has to change.
That's so true.
That,
that's a great point.
So, so that is how I operate. I don't, there are many things I'm not doing right now. I'm picking and choosing because we only have so much time. So what I did was, I learned about this sometime last summer, probably when you first launched, like spring, summer last year. We were coming out of the pandemic. I was getting into actually doing some work. Yeah. And I knew I wanted to do it. I knew it was going to make a difference, but I couldn't take it on right then. And I said, this is going to be one of my, what I call my January projects, when things quiet down, at least in the Northeast. First quarter is quiet. So I took it on as a January project that, of course, happened in February. And I signed up, and yeah, I was a little nervous. I was like, what is this? But I will say, like, you have that sample thing, the sample job that you can kind of play around with. You are very clear at how willing you are to help people. And so it wasn't scary in that way. And you had the money back guarantee or anything, which I knew was not going to be an issue. Like, I knew I was going to get through it and get through my pain point if I had one, and be off and running. So I really started with that. And then I also, what I had been doing was saving my paper from all the events. I had saved a bunch of them. So I put in a couple of kind of classic Jeri Solomon floral design weddings, just to see how that would work. And I started building my library that way, because I use a lot of roses. I use a lot of hydrangea. I use a lot of stock, like spray roses, leucanthus. I put those things into the library. And so already, like, a good kind of stock or base of my what I use was there. And then I kind of felt like I was off and running. And then I started, put in some templates, like I said. And now it's like, I use it for every event. And I even use it for a simple, like, corporate event with 8 centerpieces. Because in this day and age too, like, prices are changing a lot for our cost of goods. And sometimes I can't believe what I'm quoting, because but I feel like I've gone into EveryStem, I've created the recipe, and EveryStem told me what it should be. And so I can go back to the client and say, that'll be $150 a table, or that'll be, and have, I've never been one to be like, I'm sorry, but I feel more confident in my pricing.
That's awesome.
Which is a great feeling. And, I feel like it just makes my business stronger.
That's awesome. Having that backup of kind of, you can do it with a calculator, and you did for many years, but when you kind of look at it on the screen and you're like, I've entered these numbers, I've done a few corporate events, things are coming back now with more, and I've seen more and more corporate events, like, I know that I can't do a centerpiece for less than $150 and make it a Jeri Solomon design. I want it to be full. I want it to be beautiful. I'm not going to do anything too small. And, knowing that, like, just having that, even if you're doing, like, I know you said for a few corporate events, you'll put in like rose miscellaneous or filler miscellaneous. We could talk about that a little bit, because I think that's super cool how you do that. because you have the market at your fingertips, and being
Mhm.
able to just say like, well, I'm going to guess on the high end of what a rose is going to cost. And if it costs a little bit less than that, I know, that you're covered, and that you're not going, well, what's the absolute lowest I can go? We're in business. I don't know that there's any other industry who's like, how cheap can I possibly make this? Like sometimes, yeah, you have a client who you're trying to help with something and you're like, all right, what's the tight, what's the low end of this? But really, like having a little wiggle room, knowing that a few roses are going to come in moldy or break, maybe you put 15 roses in the centerpiece, knowing that if you have 12, if a few break per arrangement, you're still covered, So having that, like, that feeling of confidence, knowing that the price is comfortable for you, that you can make the client happy, it's just kind of like a second double check on, you knowing that your pricing is comfortable, and that you could say to the client, like, if this is what you want, this is what I have to charge. And if you can't afford that, we could talk about some other options, but we're not going to just keep cutting the price down.
No, the other thing I do on that is that, so again, we have a market. I also order things online, like through my suppliers, and online numbers are far less. So if the cost of a rose is $1.50 in the market, but this happened in the corporate event this week, cost of roses are between $1.35 and $1.50 right now in my area.
Yeah.
I got red roses for under $1. That's a lot of profit per rose. Like that's like a lot. And so I'm keeping it.
So smart.
So that, and in fact, I showed my wholesaler my summaries from EveryStem. He's like, what is that? Like, look at this. So I actually had 3 events this week, and I, flowers are all ordered, flowers are all bought. And I looked at the profit summary, and I looked at what, basically what I said I was going to spend in the program and what I ended up spending. And it was, what I ended up spending was less, like by over $100, so I can't remember. Yeah, it was like, it was good.
Yeah. And
already I had a good, percentage,
That's
so
awesome. Yeah. So you knew you had a little wiggle room even beyond that. And, some of those events, I feel like we have to keep in mind as business owners that it's over a period of time. So if this corporate event, you're under by $100, we don't know what flower prices are going to be 3 months, 6 months from now. If you know that you've got some really good profit margin on some of these events, and 6 months from now you have a wedding and the prices are a little higher, okay, well, I've made a 78% profit margin on my last 16 events. That because you're looking at it in EveryStem and you see those numbers. If you're a little lower on a wedding 6 months from now, you can feel okay about it, which I think leaves a lot of,
you can put the peonies in the bridal bouquet and make her happy. And that's, you can't put a value, you can't put a price on like a super happy, ecstatic bride because she got something in her bouquet. I did that a couple of weeks ago. Her bouquet was way over budget because of those peonies, but it was gorgeous and it was what she wanted. It was beautiful and, happy.
And she'll probably sing your praises to many other brides, and you'll get referrals. And so, I mean, there are times where it's worth it to kind of maybe go a little over. And also on each recipe in an event, you can certainly have that wiggle room where like maybe you're a little over on the bridal bouquet, but then maybe on the centerpieces you were a little under. And so you can kind of manage it, balance it out.
And I've seen that. And that is great to see at the bottom, how it's like, okay, you've got your negative number here and you've got your positive number here. And I look at that because a lot of times the bridal bouquet might be a little over, but the centerpiece is a little under or things like that. And if those numbers across the board, net out to close to zero, I'm good.
Yeah.
Plus, I have that wiggle room of me putting in my numbers, like the cost per stem is you know, market price, not necessarily what I might get it for. And I just keep it that way.
Yeah, I think entering the higher end of pricing, you know, when you're entering it into the system, like taking, you know, a flower like the peonies behind me. I was freelancing last weekend and I got these.
Gorgeous.
They're so pretty. But, you know, if you know they're going to be from $7.90 in Austin, Texas, we pay some higher prices for peonies. We could pay up to $8.90 for a peony, or maybe we pay $3.90 for a peony. You know, I'm going to guess on the high end. Now, on a peony, that is you know, there's a $5 difference there. That's pretty big. But if I guess on the high end at the beginning, when I'm estimating, then when I go back in and get the final price from my wholesaler, I can say, okay, it's a little less. Maybe I'll add a few more flowers or I'll adjust or something. But it gives you that ability to say, okay, it's okay for me to make a little more profit margin. And now that you see that a little bit easier on the screen as compared to doing it with a calculator, do you feel like you're actually making more money per event?
I think I probably am. Because I would, you know, I'll get back to you on that like later in the year when I'm really, or when I can compare like this year to maybe 2019 before the pandemic.
Yeah, exactly.
But I do think I am, because I also think there's something about, it's almost like the program's telling me that this is my profit margin. And if I see like under 70%, like I need to change that. Like, whereas before I might be like, it's fine, you know, but
you already did the math. You're not going to do it by hand all over again.
Right. Or you have it's like almost like an authority that's helping you like say, well, nope, you got to stay here. And you know, the same way people use like a Fitbit or something, or like, oh, I got to get more steps in because the program tells me I need more steps, that sort of thing. So I think it helps with the habit, you know.
Yeah. I was just talking to another experienced designer. Her name is Ashley Fox, and she was one of our first members. And she said that she and her husband sat down and did all the accounting for this year. And she said she's been in business for 14 years. And this year, you know, her last full year with EveryStem was her most profitable year of any year she's been in business.
That's
and
awesome.
She really did, you know, attribute it to using the system. So I'll be interested to see how you feel after and what you look at your numbers and let me know how it's going. But between the confidence, you know, level that you're feeling, the time you're saving by going from, you know, paper to the EveryStem system, and the kind of that mental capacity that you said that has opened up, do you feel like, you know, it's worthwhile, the system, spending the time to change, the money you've paid?
I think the money I've paid is a very fair cost of doing business. Some of the fairest around. Like there's other things I pay for where I was like, I kind of need this, but I don't know if it's I don't think it's not quite right. I think it's so fair, and appreciate that. And I think it's you know, for people who are questioning it, I think you will make your money back in your first job. I really do. You know, and as far as all the time, I'm thrilled with it. I really am. And I love, again, you know, as much as it's hard to change, I do recognize the need to innovate. And I feel like now it's like a game. You know, before it was a chore to get the pen and the paper and the calculator. And now it's like, oh, what happens if I add a rose? What happens if I take this out? You know, how do we manipulate the numbers? Oh, I see I have, you know, 24 roses left over. You know, how do I manipulate the numbers so that, you know, maybe I'm using more roses, but maybe I can, you know, so it's just makes it easy to change things. And so I think of it as a game. And I know, and again, I enjoy numbers, and I know not all floral designers enjoy numbers, but I think there is a certain amount of, you know, embrace the numbers and think of it as a game, like how much profit can you make? And again, to your point of, you know, I don't know what other business like doesn't, like we as florists, sometimes it's like, oh, we shouldn't charge that much. We shouldn't make that much money. we work really, really, really hard. It's like
Yeah.
blood, sweat, tears, literally blood, sweat, tears. We've all had all of those things.
Oh yeah.
The job.
Absolutely.
And you know, we have value. And you know, there's a reason why people come to us, because we know what we're doing and they don't. You know, so we should all be making money and be standing tall doing it, and still providing great service and beautiful, beautiful flowers.
Yeah, and I think finding that balance between, you know, the perceived value for the client. You know, you've got so many experience, you know, you have a lot of experience with so many weddings under your belt. You can probably tell, you know, from meeting with the client, understanding what they're looking for, that, you know, you need to come up with a certain level of design. You know, you might, I'm, you know, like I've done weddings for many years. You know, if I had a bride who came in and said, I'm getting married at the Wildflower Center and I love the view of the, you know, I love the space. I just want some wildflowers and bud vases. Okay, that bride, I'm going to be able to be a lot more flexible with than the bride who comes in and says, I'm getting married at the Four Seasons. I expect lavish, lush, full arrangements with a certain aesthetic. And so you can kind of balance that, you know, perceived value for the client, making sure they're super happy. And then behind the scenes, use a system like EveryStem to manipulate it so that you can maximize your profitability. And I think, you know, to paraphrase what you're saying, is taking that and turning it into a, you know, little bit of a game, which is great. I mean, that's how we motivate ourselves. There's nothing wrong with that. And saying like, I'm going to see how much profit I can make while still making my client super happy and giving my client the best. So, you know, knowing that takes a little bit of experience, but I think using EveryStem, like you were saying, now you're saving recipes, you were saving the ones you had written down before, but you had never done that. So you had all these recipes in the past that were probably valuable because you had history, you had, you know, information there, that now using EveryStem, you could go back and say, well, what did I do for that bride last year? I know, oh, I felt like I needed to put one more thing in there, and, you know, I'm going to go back and adjust that recipe so I know it's what I want.
Yeah, it's really great.
That's awesome. Well, is there anything else you'd want to share with anybody who's interested in joining or thinking about becoming a member, where from, you know, from your perspective, what you would give them as far as advice or encouragement or anything like that?
I would say just do it. And I know that it is a habit. I think maybe put a little time in your schedule to commit to doing it. Know that there's help along the way. You know, Luann is absolutely committed to your success. And I think it will, you know, be a game changer for you. I think for someone experienced like me and the brain space and that sort of thing, but somebody who's just starting out, I think it will really help them with the numbers, because again, the system does it for you. So you can just look at those bottom lines and know if you're in the right spot. I think a lot of people, if they're don't love numbers, kind of don't even know how to look at the numbers to know what's happening and know what's a good number to be at, you know, profit wise and things like that. And so this very clearly does that for you. And I highly recommend it. I'm thrilled. I really am. And it's been so fun to talk about it and share my experience. And, you know, I think everybody should sign up.
That's awesome. Well, Jeri, thank you so much for your time today. I'm so happy that you found EveryStem and that you're enjoying it and that it's helping you. One of the reasons I created it was because I knew that a lot of us needed something like this, and that it would be something that would be helpful for designers. And like you said, we all work so hard. We really put our heart and soul into every event or wedding or design that we do. And so being able to be smart about it and maximize our profitability at the same time, and be more efficient, saving time over the old calculator, I think is one of the reasons I really wanted to create it. So I'm so glad that you found it and that you're enjoying it.
Thank you so much for creating this and for caring about florists and how they think and all of that. And it's been a pleasure talking to you today. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you so much. And I'm so excited to hear, after you've had a year full of EveryStem weddings, how you feel about the profitability overall. That'll be a good eye. So we'll come back and talk about that.
I would love to. Yeah, that sounds like a great idea.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeri. Everybody have a great day.
Bye.